Hello everyone, and welcome to Earth Archives. You often say that life is full of suffering, and that the universe might even be better off without life. Is that really true? Why are you so pessimistic?
Yes, I am somewhat pessimistic, but not for the sake of pessimism. It comes from observing the nature of life. I see life on Earth as a kind of cosmic imprisonment. Every person is driven, almost entirely unconsciously, by an invisible force, will or the will to live. Think about it. Much of what we pursue as pleasure is misguided. Chasing fame, money, social status, even entertainment. All just temporary escapes from boredom or suffering.
So, you believe suffering outweighs happiness? Then what should we do?
Exactly, that's the point. Suffering is indeed far more common than happiness, but it also points the way. It teaches us how to prevent life from collapsing, and how to find small moments of joy even in a bleak world. I think there are three main factors that determine happiness: what kind of person you are, what you possess, and how others perceive you. Of these, the most important is what kind of person you are.
So material wealth, money, and reputation don't matter at all?
Not that they don't matter, but they are secondary. How much wealth you have, or what others think of you, are just peripheral factors. True happiness depends on your character, your personality, and your inner state. For example, someone who chases wealth may find temporary satisfaction, but that happiness is fragile, and failing to get what they want can multiply their suffering. But if you use money rationally, for independence, for control of your time, rather than extreme indulgence, then suffering is greatly reduced.
So, happiness isn't about gaining more, but reducing suffering?
Exactly. Happiness, in essence, is just a temporary cessation of suffering. When you learn to reduce unnecessary desires and avoid being driven by consumerism or social comparison, you can avoid a lot of needless suffering. This is why I always say, life's focus isn't the pursuit of extreme pleasure, but the avoidance of suffering.
Then how do we actually avoid suffering?
First, understand what kind of person you are. Your personality, preferences, and abilities determine what brings you happiness. A person who enjoys thinking isn't suited for repetitive physical labor. Someone who enjoys physical activity isn't suited for sitting at a desk all day. Second, achieve financial independence. It protects you from external pressures and prevents your survival from being forced by others. Third, maintain detachment from others' opinions, because most opinions are hollow, narrow, or mistaken, and aren't worth measuring your happiness against.
But we can't help caring what others think.
That's natural. Humans are inherently sensitive to reputation and social evaluation. The problem is, we overestimate their influence. Many people suffer more from praise or criticism than from poverty. Happiness comes primarily from within, from how you perceive the world, how you face life internally, not from external wealth or honor.
So, it's a kind of psychological self-rescue?
Exactly. Maintaining a pleasant inner state is the most reliable way out of suffering. Joy doesn't rely on money, fame, or others. It arises from an inner acceptance and understanding of life. Long-term deprivation or overindulgence cannot bring true happiness. Only balance of mind and inner joy can act as the antidote.
Can this inner joy be learned, or is it innate?
It can be cultivated. I call it the joy of the mind's natural flow. Pleasure without cause, joy for the sake of joy itself. Reading music, writing, philosophical reflection, appreciating art. These are safe and lasting sources of happiness, rarely causing suffering. When you live according to your nature, happiness naturally arises.
So we shouldn't chase extreme pleasure, but pursue a life of low suffering and high stability?
Exactly. Avoiding suffering is more important than seeking pleasure. Happiness isn't external, it's how you face life. When you reduce unnecessary desires and cultivate inner joy, even in a life with suffering, you can maintain peace and contentment to a large degree.
I'm beginning to understand. Your philosophy isn't pessimistic, it's a wise strategy for living.
Exactly. It's not about denying life, but about teaching you how to live more lightly on this planet, even though it's shrouded in suffering. Life can never be completely free of pain, but we can avoid unnecessary torment and cultivate enduring joy. That's the most reliable way out of suffering.
Can we have an example of how to live using your method?
Of course. Suppose you're tired from work every day. After coming home, you make a cup of tea, read quietly, listen to music, or write in a journal. These small, stable activities don't require money or fame, and they don't create psychological burdens, but they provide lasting pleasure. Or consider someone who loves socializing but feels drained inside. They can greatly reduce suffering by choosing quiet activities instead.
So, are you saying that simplicity brings more happiness?
Exactly. You can simplify life by keeping only what truly benefits you. Less meaningless comparison and desire. More time to reconcile with yourself. Joy itself is the antidote. It doesn't need to be given by the outside world.
Your words make me feel like there's a path in life, not escape, but a wise way to avoid suffering.
That's exactly it. Everyone experiences suffering, but suffering doesn't define life. We can choose ways to make life more controllable, more gentle. Joy is the most reliable antidote. It protects you from suffering more than wealth, fame, or even achievement.
You mentioned earlier that avoiding suffering is more important than pursuing pleasure. Can you give a few practical guidelines for life?
Certainly. Focus on the core principles, which boil down to 3 points. First, understand your nature and structure life accordingly. Second, control your desires so you're not led around by the outside world. Third, cultivate inner joy, a source of pleasure within yourself, not dependent on external validation. A simple yet profound example. Complain less, envy less, and focus on what you can control. It sounds ordinary, but it can save you from a great deal of unnecessary suffering.
Complain less? Nowadays, with social media, it's almost impossible not to complain.
Haha, exactly, that's the problem. Social media acts like a magnifying glass, constantly comparing us and highlighting our lack. But as Schopenhauer would say, you can't control other people's lives. You can only control yourself. Complaining less isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about focusing your attention on what you can do. This lowers psychological burden and prevents suffering from spreading.
What about principles regarding material wealth?
That's interesting too. Schopenhauer said wealth itself doesn't bring happiness. It's just a tool to avoid suffering. In other words, money isn't joy. It's a shield from pain. The key is not to pin your happiness on it, but to use it to create freedom. Freedom to choose your time. Freedom to do what you love. Freedom from being pressured by life. Simply put, having money without anxiety. That's the ideal state.
So, how can we apply these principles in modern life? We go to work every day, handle stress, and are constantly busy with social obligations.
Exactly, that's the point. I suggest 3 steps. First, structure your life to align with your personality and preferences. If you enjoy thinking, schedule reading, writing, and deep conversations. If you enjoy action, focus on exercise and outdoor activities. Second, practice small-scale control over desires, starting with simple things. Reduce social media, curb unnecessary spending. Don't chase fame excessively. Third, cultivate sources of inner joy, pleasure that doesn't rely on the outside world and lasts over time, such as music, reading, art, philosophy, or creative work.
So you're saying that joy is actually an internal skill?
Exactly. It's not innate. It can be cultivated. Think of it like a mental muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. For example, spend half an hour each day reading or writing quietly, without seeking rewards, just enjoying the present moment. Gradually, you'll find that even when life is stressful or disappointing, you can still find joy within yourself without being led around by the outside world.
But in reality, we always encounter unfairness, difficulties, or setbacks. What should we do about those?
That's precisely the unavoidable part of suffering. Schopenhauer emphasized that life is inherently filled with suffering. There's no escape. The key is how we respond. First, accept its existence without complaining or denying it. Second, analyze which suffering is controllable and which is not. For the uncontrollable, practice psychological release and avoid adding extra torment. For the controllable, take proactive action to prevent repeating the same suffering. This greatly reduces pain and stabilizes joy.
It sounds like a philosophical approach to emotional management.
Exactly. It's not just philosophy, it's a life strategy. For example, if work stress makes you anxious, Schopenhauer wouldn't suggest simply resisting it. Instead, he would recommend analyzing. Which parts can I control, and which parts can I? Do what you can control, and let go of what you can't. This is a pain reduction strategy for the mind. Over time, you gradually cultivate a stable sense of joy.
Can activities like music, reading, or writing really counteract the pressures of modern life?
Absolutely. Low-level pleasures, like food, drink, and entertainment, are often fleeting and can even bring more suffering. But mental pleasures are higher level and lasting. They don't depend on the outside world and aren't affected by social media or others' opinions. This is what I mean by joy without reason. Feeling happy simply because happiness itself exists.
Then, if someone fully lives according to your method, would they become pessimistic? You always say life has more suffering than pleasure.
No, that's a common misunderstanding. Being pessimistic doesn't mean being negative. It means recognizing reality. Acknowledging suffering allows you to avoid being overwhelmed by it. When you reduce unnecessary desires, cultivate inner joy, and control what suffering you can control, you'll find life is actually very free and stable. Suffering is no longer everything. It becomes a background color that makes joy more vivid.
So for ordinary people, what's the simplest starting point to move beyond suffering?
The starting point is actually simple. 2 things. Know yourself and cultivate inner joy. First, understand what kind of person you are, what you like, what you can handle, and arrange your life to match your nature. Then find 1 or 2 safe and lasting sources of happiness, like reading, music, walking, or creating. Things that don't depend on others or wealth. If you follow these 2 steps, you're already far away from most unnecessary suffering.
Does this mean we should redefine happiness?
Exactly. Happiness is no longer a gift from the outside world, nor does it depend on money or fame. It's an internal ability, a sense of control over your life, the strength to smile even in difficult situations. This is lasting happiness and the true path to moving beyond suffering.
Hearing you say this, it feels like life suddenly becomes more manageable.
Yes, life can never be completely free of suffering, but we can prevent it from dominating us. Joy comes from within. Suffering serves as a signal for what needs adjustment. Master this balance, and you can breathe freely in this world instead of being led around by pain.
Thank you. These philosophical methods feel both practical and gentle.
You're welcome. Remember, life is yours. The outside world can give temporary pleasure, but true, lasting joy always comes from within. Maintain joy, reduce suffering, and cultivate inner freedom. This is Schopenhauer's most important wisdom for us.
If you enjoyed this philosophical conversation, remember to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with friends, so more people can learn how to move beyond suffering and find their own inner happiness.
Exactly. Life is inherently full of challenges, but by mastering these philosophical insights, you can live more calmly and joyfully. Thank you for watching, and we'll explore more life wisdom next time.